Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to this week's Q&A. I already had my lighting out and my camera set up because I was shooting the me footage for a video that's coming out next week. So I figured while everything's out there, why not jump right into the Q&As? Let me know what you think of the new camera. I'm still keeping my old one. I'm just replacing my backup camera with a really nice one now. So hopefully I can get a little fancier and start to keep up with all the big dogs out there. But let me know what you think and let's jump right into the Q&As. First up, Samson Wick asked, are there any actually good HDMI solutions for the original Xbox? So the best solution that you can get from any console would be a digital to digital solution. And I've heard people talk about it, but I don't think anybody's prototyped it, or it's certainly not something that you could buy now or even a pre-order. So while I hope certain people that were talking about it stick with it, there's nothing at the moment. As far as if you need HDMI now, so let's say you buy like a new TCL TV that doesn't even have component inputs, you can get those cheap converters, and as long as you're going 480p and up, I've had pretty good luck with them. The times that they really do a bad job are when you're trying to deal with 240p or for some of the conversion stuff. So what I would suggest is just getting any of the cheapest component to HDMI converters that you could find. Obviously, you would want to find the best quality component cables for your Xbox. And then after that, just plug it into one of those converters and go to HDMI. And it'll definitely be a good enough solution for now. And it won't add any lag whatsoever. So I think I've read about some cables, like pound style cables out for the Xbox that all stink. I would just ignore those. And of course, the best solution at the moment for the Xbox would be to plug it into the open source scan converter. So, that's a bit overkill, but you do get the bonus of doubling 480p to 960p and the low pass filters and all that awesomeness. So I guess from a retro gamer's perspective, the best thing to do now would just be integrate it into your existing OSSC, or I guess FrameMeister if you could. And if you don't have any of that stuff, try one of those cheap $20 converters and see if that works. And then hope that people do digital to digital true HDMI mods in the future. Jacob Proctor was correcting me from last week about using extension cables with PC Engine controllers. He said PS2 is 6-pin mini-DIN and PC Engine controllers are 8-pin mini-DIN. Yeah, sorry about that. I totally forgot. And the ones that I got seemed to be the ones that you got as well, the 8-pin mini-DIN extensions from Monoprice. And you said the one you got was a little loose. The one I got was fine. It's never come out, but that's the perfect time for some painter's tape or something like that. Just wrap that around, and it doesn't leave any residue, and it kind of secures it back in. Or I'm sure we could find some other nerdy way to get that stuck together well. But thank you for the correction, and yeah, that's right. And I believe the price I said, I think was true though. I think there really was like 2 for $10 or something like that. So once again, if you need a longer solution, there aren't any wireless controllers available that I know of for the PC Engine or TurboGrafx. So you could just do something like get those extensions. Or I think I may have forgotten to mention last week, Smoke Monster pointed out a while back, if you get one of those multi-tap things, not only does that act as an extension because it has its own cable to it, of course, but you could also mod those to have whichever cable you want. So for example, if you have a bunch of TurboGrafx 16 controllers and you're using a PC Engine, just open up the multi-tap and replace the cable with one of those 8-pin mini-DINs. And then you could even make it longer extension. So you could get one of the 10-footers, plug that in, and now you have not only an extension cable and a multi-tap, but you could, I don't want to say convert, but convert TurboGrafx to PC Engine or vice versa. So thank you for the correction, and sorry that I forgot the multi-tap thing last week as well. Nathan Kimball asked, what are my thoughts on the ShinyBo 4x2 matrix component switch? He said the only thing he could find is an Amazon review where they say it did handle 240p correctly. Have I owned one? I have owned the ShinyBo SCART matrix switch, the 6x2, and that worked great for me. I'd heard some people say that they had issues with theirs, but whatever problem they described, I definitely didn't have. And I think it was only certain serial numbers had it, like one run of production might have had an issue. I do think they're pretty expensive, though. Now, I could be remembering wrong, but I thought those were well over $100, whereas you can get things like, they're big and bulky, but you can get an Extron Crosspoint 8-port switch for fairly cheap. And then, of course, you have the Super G's G-Comp switch coming out soon, which is an 8x2. And while that's surely going to be more expensive than the Shinybo, at least it's designed around retro gaming, so you never have to worry about any of that stuff. So the direct answer to your question is, although I've never used it, I think it would be fine, but there might be better solutions out there, either from a cost or functionality perspective. Jason D asked, can the high-def NES output analog and digital at the same time? No, not at all. So not only can you not have an RGB and HDMI mod, but you also can't even run composite video and HDMI at the same time. One pretty neat thing though, you do get some video information out of the composite video port. So I spoke to Teppels, the creator of the NES version of the 240p test suite, and he was able to make it so that when you use the lag test, it shows up sort of, at least good enough, throughout the composite video port. So if you own a high-def NES, you could actually use that to lag test a monitor. Kind of a ghetto way of doing it, but you could have your flat screen and a CRT next to each other, obviously composite to the CRT, and then HDMI to the flat screen, and then use a high frame rate camera, something like the slow motion mode on your cell phone or something like that, and you'd be able to tell within a frame what the difference in lag was. So doing it that way, I've been able to test, within reason, this TV's got 3 frames of lag, stuff like that. So while you couldn't game analog and digital at the same time with a high-def NES, I guess that is kind of a fun little bonus. Alex Douse said he's able to take the possession of a Sony BVM 1910, but it's not working. He needs to find someone that could work on it, but is having great difficulty. He's tried Facebook groups, the forum on Atari Age, as well as mine and Smoke Monster's Discords with no success. He says he lives near Charlotte and is willing to drive a good ways to see about getting it running and tuned up. So this is a hard situation to be in because there are very few people that I know personally that I would trust to do something like that. And when I say very few people, I mean I know countless people that can mod a SNES Mini and do an excellent job. I don't know countless people that could do any kind of repair on CRTs. The other problem is most of the people I know are very badly backlogged. They probably have months worth of work. And other people just, in order to escape that problem, charge a lot, which I don't think is a negative thing at all, by the way. It takes a lot of time to fix these things, so in my opinion, you should charge a fair price, but you shouldn't be cheap about it because they are, it's a ton of work. So the only suggestions I could have is if it's a BVM with the removable slots to it, you could have all of the slots taken out, the input card, the ISR board, and the power board, and you could probably send that to somebody who could take a look at them. You could post pictures online. Maybe there's some very obvious damage that people could help with. So I don't believe I've ever used a BVM 1910. If you meant PVM 1910, then there's no removable slots. But let's assume they're not. At that point, you need to take it to some place that would know how to do. You might not need a full recap because that takes an entire weekend to do. That's a lot of money and kind of overkill in some cases. So you would need to find somebody that knows how to diagnose it, has the right tools. Then almost guaranteed they're not going to have all the caps you need. So you would either have to pre-buy a cap kit or after the problem was diagnosed, order a bunch of parts and see if that fixes it. And my guess is that you'd have to do that a bunch of times. So unfortunately, I have no good suggestions for you whatsoever, and it bothers me that I don't. I wish there was a better thing I could tell everybody that wants to use these monitors and just doesn't have the ability and or the time to do it. Time is starting to be a really important thing for me because although I am nowhere near the level of people like Jose or Voltar, I'm good enough to do a lot of this stuff. I just don't have 2 full days to recap an entire monitor. So I guess I would just keep trying on different forums and see if you know somebody that's reliable. Maybe there's going to be somebody near you that's done it before. I would just keep trying and see. But if, when you use the wording take possession of, it almost sounds like you might be able to grab one for free. If you have the space, I would just do it if that's the case. And it would be my opinion with almost any RGB monitor like that. If you have the ability to get it for free, especially if it powers on and you know that the tube doesn't have burn-in or anything. I would grab it and hold on to it and just maybe you can get lucky in the future. So sorry, Alex, I wish I had better suggestions. And if anybody listening has any suggestion, just jump right on Patreon or find Alex on the forums and ask. Mike W. says he has an OSSC connected to his RGB modded one-chip SNES, Dreamcast via VGA, and Wii via component. At this point, he could tweak the OSSC settings to get each console looking good, but he doesn't understand how to save the settings on a per-input basis. Does he need to create 3 separate profiles and load the right one when switching inputs? And is there a guide that I could link that would work? So first, I would check out Firebrand X's page on all of that stuff. I think he goes into how to create the profiles, how he tweaks different things, and he has his own profiles as well. But to be honest, that's a great question, and I think the way I do it is I load the profile, then I set the input. The reason I'm hesitating is because I believe Marcus built in a bunch of auto-select features, which I usually turn off because the primary use of my OSSC is testing and capture. So I want control of everything. I just want to make sure I know exactly what's going on. So I think you'd be able to probably make it so profiles match the inputs and stuff like that. But at the very least, worst case scenario, you'd be able to power on the OSSC, load your profile, then set the input, and then you're good. I would just double check on that. Firebrand X's website, and of course, that profile builder that Marcus has is worth looking at. Now, of course, you're going to want to be on the latest firmware because you're going to want to make sure to have the firmware that has all of the load, export profiles and all that stuff. Then just go to that site on on Marcus's page, make the firmware the profile update, flash that to an SD card, and go from there. So Firebrand X has details on that. I think Marcus does too on whatever his page is. But report back if you get a chance to do it. I'd be interested to see if you could have it so that SCART is always one profile and component is always another profile, unless you do something to change that. So give it a shot and let me know. I guess since there aren't that many questions this week, I should probably address Polymega, because I think there were a lot of really upset people on Twitter and on YouTube when I posted that little teaser video. And I'm always transparent about this stuff, so I figured now this will air before the interview will. I haven't even done the interview yet, so I figured I'd give all of my supporters a heads up on what that was all about. I was very upset with the way that Polymega has handled pretty much everything. And when I say upset, it's if I didn't pre-order it, what business is it of mine? But a lot of the projects that I work on and a lot of the people and companies that I work with, we're all part of the retro gaming world. So if there's one massive fail, all of us feel it. People just kind of get sick of that stuff. They don't trust pre-orders as much and all of that. So I was upset about and following the whole Polymega thing. And then when they got mean on Twitter, I stood up and mouthed off because I've never had a problem standing up for myself. So I just felt the need to stand in and say it. And then the more I started to really look into all this and the more I started to talk to people, I kind of had a feeling it was one of two things. It was either a complete and total scam, and I had expressed my concerns about that publicly, or it was just a company that they're concentrating on R&D and their customer service sucks. We've all seen that before, especially with nerd stuff. So I wasn't sure which was which, and my buddy Arturo texted me and said that he got invited to go check it out, and I said, you got to bring me. So he asked. We didn't surprise him. We didn't sneak up or anything. But it was very clear. They were like, this guy hates us. Why would you bring him? But I showed up, and I'm always polite. There's no reason to be mean to somebody. It's not like the guy took a swing at me or anything. And as soon as I started talking to Brian, within 10 minutes, it was definitely a real product. And it doesn't suck. So I think maybe my other suspicion was correct, and maybe they just aren't the greatest at customer service. So I wanted to talk more, and I wanted to do an interview right there, but he had to make a flight. So I felt like because I had kind of inferred, hey, everybody, this could very well be a scam. I don't know if I went out and said those words exactly, but I definitely made it clear that people should be careful of this stuff. with Theranos and the Fire Festival, and there's still people just with blinders on investing and pre-ordering things that probably are never going to be a product. So I wanted to make sure that I made up for that, because I always admit when I'm wrong, and whatever I thought maybe was the case before, after seeing it in person, it's a real thing. So whether I like it or not doesn't matter. What their customer service doesn't matter. The thing that mattered in that moment to me was I inferred that maybe it was a scam and not real, and I was wrong. So if nothing else, I owed it to them to say, hey, this is a real product. Stick my foot in my mouth. Oops, sorry, here you go. And the lag isn't too bad. So I'll be doing, probably about 24 hours from now, I should be shooting the interview with Brian. And I got a lot going on this weekend, so it might not air till Sunday or Monday, if not Tuesday. Probably earlier than that, though. But I will ask all the hard questions. And no, I'm not going to harp on little technical details, especially things that could be changed in firmware updates. Because I've been where he's sitting before, trying to get a product out, having road bumps the whole way. Whether it's their fault or not makes no difference. I understand what it's like, so there's no point in harping on tiny little details. But I will ask all the hard questions and all the big questions, all the most important ones. And as far as my impression of what it was like in the 2 hours I spent with it in that room, it seems like the goal of Polymega is to make an emulation box with a really great GUI that's just an emulation box that just works. And a lot of people scoff at that. And I think I probably did too at first. It's like a Raspberry Pi or something. But the truth is, a lot of people I know would love to have any kind of solution, including a Raspberry Pi. But it's always work. It's always something. And think about it from the perspective of somebody who's never had to flash an SD card before, who's never used a Linux loader or anything like that. Being able to buy a Raspberry Pi, buy all the stuff involved, read up on it, download the possibly illegal image with ROMs on it. I mean, it's a pain in the ass. Even controller configuration. If you don't have one with every button you need, that's a pain too. So the thought of having a box that you just buy, that you put the CDs in, whether you rip them to the hard drive or not, whether they're CDRs, I don't care. You put your CD game in, you plug your controller into it, and it just works. Same thing with their modules. You plug your cartridge in it and it just works. Maybe you'll figure out eventually how to put ROMs on an SD card. Doesn't matter. The very basic, just plug it in and go, that's a big deal. And it might not be for us. When I say us, I'm assuming people watching this are retro gamers that like things like PVMs and original hardware. We're not going to be the ones buying the Polymega. But as long as it's not an experience that's going to suck so bad that people quit playing retro games, I'm cool with it. And I'm totally behind a product that makes something like that easier. Now, of course, I would like to see features that would matter to retro gamers that you can't get on any other platform other than emulation. I would like to see more guarantees of their customer service. And I'm going to ask all of this stuff in the interview. I know I'm probably rambling at this point, but I wanted to make the point that, I'm not getting paid off to sell out. The moment I tweeted that, Voltar sent me like a paragraph of like, you are a sellout, you've just lost half your followers, and it's, if that's what you think, that's fine. But I wanted to make up for my mistake in saying that it was probably, or it could have been a scam. It's not. There's no guarantee the product's going to ship until the day it ships, but it's definitely a real product. It's not like the Coleco Chameleon that was just a capture card in a box. That's a scam. This, at least, is a working thing. So I wanted to get that point out there. I wanted to make the point of like, if it is just an emulation box, as long as they're not stealing people's software, as long as they make it easy for consumers, we all kind of win. And I also gave them a couple tips on how they could probably improve the lag. So 2.5 frames, it's not bad. It's way better than so many other solutions out there. So if they can get that down to 2 or 1, it's a viable platform. But all of this is speculation. All of this is me rambling. And if you're not a supporter and you're watching this once it goes live on YouTube, it's all a waste of your time because you probably already heard the interview by now. But I wanted to at least bring it up to my supporters so that they know that I'm not turning into a shill that could be paid off. There's no ulterior motive for anything that I'm doing. It's just typical Bob, transparent, telling everybody what I see when I see it. And hopefully there'll be a lot of these questions answered during the interview. I mean, or not. Maybe I'll freak out and flip out during the interview, but I'm definitely going to give Brian the chance because, I mean, why not? Why wouldn't I? What if this could be a cool product? So thanks to everybody that understood. I'll end the rant now. And yeah, please tune into the interview, which should be within a few days. Well, that's about it for this week. For anybody new to any of the supporter stuff, first and foremost, I don't normally go on a 5-minute rant about something. I just had some extra time this week and thought I'd throw that in there. And also, if you have any questions at all, please post wherever you found this video in the latest Q&A's comment section. So I turned the comments off on YouTube because this really is a supporter-focused thing. I make this public about a month after they air just as a courtesy for people, but this really is focused on the supporters. So please find the latest Q&A wherever it is that you support. Bitbacker, Subscribestar, Patreon, YouTube, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. Just find the latest Q&A and post in the comments there. The way I do things, it's kind of impossible to go and find comments on the older Q&As. And since there was only 6 questions this week, I'm assuming because I shot the Q&A early, some probably are coming in as this thing is rendering. So if I miss your question, it's almost guaranteed that it was a mistake. Please just re-ask it. Or if it's something super important, try to get a hold of me. But I've been kind of hard to get a hold of lately. I'm just too swamped. My deepest apologies. But anyway, thank you so much for everybody that supports. I really appreciate it, and I really think that it's contributing to some bigger projects that hopefully we all could enjoy. Anyway, see you next time.